Grimwick the Demon Cat. Book 3, The Tournament. Chapter 14, A Tradition Renewed. Professor Vyne was in the office of the Archmage of Cragstone Mage Academy. It was an office full of accolades, trophies, and artwork. To be an Archmage and the head of a magical academy was no small feat, so even Vyne treated him with the utmost respect. But in all of her years as a faculty member, she never had seen him once perform a magical feat. However, as soon as she was discharged from the medical ward, she was summoned into his office. Someone needed to explain why 3 students were sent to the medical ward, why 2 professors had severe injuries, and how a 3rd professor had died. Though Vyne was discharged from the medical office, the battle with the Lich and the Crypts had taken a toll on her physically. Outwardly, she kept her stern face and stiff posture, but every step she took ached. Her bones had mostly healed, but it was her hair that was singed after the fight with the Lich, so she had to cut most of it off. She tried her best to keep it straight, but the jagged cuts made it look more styled. A few professors even complimented her on it, and she hated that. As Vyne recounted the events that occurred down in the crypts, Archmage Turnbill fluffed the patch of hair that clung to his forehead. Even being the Archmage of Cragstone Academy, Vyne didn't trust him with all the details, but she had been thinking of a watered-down version that she could give him, as not to raise suspicion. So Professor Crinkle was eaten by her own monster? Professor Vyne nodded. Archmage Turnbill looked into a floating mirror. Shame, I'll miss her meat pies. She intended to feed our students to that monster, Vyne huffed. And good thing we have you and Professor Nickel that did not happen, Lemon Puff? He held out a box of sweets. Vyne shook her head in disgust. The Archmage shrugged. Your loss. These were from Crinkle. Probably the last ones, too. I might have a graduate-level mage reverse engineer the recipe. Vyne's upper lip twitched, and the Archmage noticed and sighed. Thank you, Vyne, for protecting the students and giving me a recap. I understand that you have some broken bones, and this whole event must have been very stressful, so please take a few days off. You've earned them. Now, if that's all, you may go. But Vyne didn't turn. Actually, there was one more thing I wanted to ask. Our students did all they could to stay alive, but if Professor Nickel and I had arrived a few seconds later, I'm afraid they wouldn't be. And I've already given you enough praise for that. That's not my point. We typically reserve magical combat classes for advanced curriculums, but I feel we should have some electives now. The Archmage should look away from his mirror. What are you suggesting, Vyne? Our mages are underprepared for the real world. I suggest we bring back the Cragstone tournament like they did in the Crystal Era. Not to the extent where students would kill each other. Sure, some students would get hurt, but nothing that magic, medicine, and a little time can't fix. It would be an event that they could train for and put some healthy competition into our student body. The Archmage rubbed his chin. I don't know. Sounds dangerous. Are any of the other magical academies doing combat tournaments? Vyne shook her head. And are any of the global academies doing combat tournaments? Vyne shook her head again. Only academic tournaments to my knowledge. The Archmage jumped up. Aha! Well, then we'll be ahead of the curve. We'll show those mages of Gloomspire what Cragstone is all about. We'll show them all. What a wonderful PR opportunity too, Vyne. Very clever. Could even invite the world's kingdoms to see our students. Ha ha ha. Yes, wonderful PR opportunity indeed, Vyne. Great idea. Great idea. Now shoo. I have to send out letters. We'll have more details tomorrow. Excellent. With that, Vyne was pushed out of the mage's office and into the lobby. If her bones weren't broken and sore, she would have put up more of a fight. This was not her intent at all. The students were far too young to get exposure to the global politics. But he couldn't be serious, right? Vyne looked around the lobby, and there were some other professors, visitors, and salespeople were waiting. The Archmage popped up in a bubble in front of one of his 4 assistants. Cancel all my meetings today. Something urgent has come up. The bubble popped, and the assistant leaned over. You heard the Archmage. Try again tomorrow. The lobby shuffled out and looked at Vyne with spite. Despite their near-death experience in the dark chambers beneath Cragstone Mage Academy, Norbert, Soot, and Grimwick were still serving detention with Vyne. Every night, they'd go down into the crypts to clean the Crystal Era archive. While Norbert would clean, Grimwick would read a textbook aloud to help Norbert study. It still seemed impossible that Norbert would pass the semester, but Grimwick made a pact with him. If Norbert passed the semester, he'd transfer Grimwick's seal to another mage. Grimwick also knew that if Norbert failed, he would be expelled. If that happened, Norbert would no longer be a student, and Vyne could inflict whatever punishment she saw fit to Norbert for summoning a demon into this realm, which he made very clear included killing Grimwick. So helping this fumbling mage not only ensured Grimwick's survival, but also could be an opportunity to upgrade summoners. Being that Norbert had almost been killed twice now, Grimwick was very eager to transfer to someone new. The nights were long, and as a result, Norbert would often fall asleep during his classes in the day, which did not help his grades. One morning they were running late to their first classroom of the day. By the time they arrived there, it was all empty. Circled on the board read, Academy Assembly today. Do not be late. Before Norbert took off looking for the assembly, he heard a loud talking voice coming from the courtyard. He opened the classroom window and peered out. The entire Mage Academy was assembled outside. Professors and mages were all in the courtyard. Head Mage Turnbill and Professor Vyne stood on a balcony overlooking the group. Ahem, is this spell on? Head Mage Turnbill asked as an echo crashed through the assembly and through the woods. Oh, good. Ahem. Welcome, faculty and students. I had a brilliant idea to host a tournament to show off our academy and how much better we are than the other academies. And, of course, to show you off as well. Good opportunity if everyone performs well. Though I've mapped it all out in my mind, I'll let Professor Vyne explain it to you all. Vyne's lip twitched. As Head Mage Turnbill said, our world's magical academies used to have a tradition of hosting tournaments. It was intended to be a fundraiser of sorts to show the funds each kingdom donated were being used to cultivate the future mages of our world. Today there are no wars or rifts, but each kingdom still contributes to the global fund that funds all of the academies. And of course, some kingdoms fund us directly. Those same kingdoms often employ our graduates, so we've decided to bring back the Cragstone Tournament. But make no mistake, this will be a lot of work. We'll start with the first-year mages and move through the apprentice levels. Then we'll go on to the graduate levels, and depending on if our stages can handle the graduate level, we may even open up to our master-level students. Excitement started to wash through the students. So Vyne continued, this will be grueling, and some of you will end up in the medical ward. You will be in direct competition with each of your classmates, and I suspect some relationships might be challenged. Since this is dangerous and some of you prefer a life behind a book, the tournament at all levels will be voluntary. We'll have open enrollment for anyone who is interested. There will be 3 rounds, and each will whittle down till there's 1 left. The winner of the tournament will receive an A for the semester in which their respective tournament is held, and that it will be an A for all the classes that you are enrolled in. Grimwick hit Norbert. Did you hear that? If we win, we get an A for the semester. No more studying. We gotta sign up. Norbert hesitated. I don't know, Grimwick. You heard Vyne. It's all hard and scary, and I'm the worst in my class. I can barely do any of the spells. Tsk. You might be weak, but I'm strong, and we can win this. We're going to win this, and when we do, my obligation to you will be fulfilled. We're signing up. Norbert and Grimwick shuffled into Vyne's office to check in for detention for that night. When they opened the door, Penelope, Crest, and Red Rideau were sitting in Vyne's chairs. It had been the first time Norbert had seen them since the Lich almost killed them all in the crypts. They both looked up and smiled at Norbert. Vyne didn't acknowledge Norbert, but spoke in a louder voice so he could hear. Very good, Miss Cress and Miss Rideau. I'm glad that you both will be joining the tournament. And I agreed to train you in basic combat techniques. But you'll need to keep 2 things in mind. 1, when the tournament starts, I'm an official first. No preferences will be given to either of you. 2, I hope you both are more punctual and socially aware than Mr. Soot. Speaking of whom, how can I help you, Mr. Soot? Norbert blushed. I'm just checking in with you before I go down to the crypts. Vyne waved her hand, dismissing him. Grimwick peeked his head above her desk. Norbert wants to sign up for the tournament. Vyne let out a laugh. I'd think not. Grimwick crawled up on top of the desk. I think so. Big Dum-Dum needs an A this semester, and he is entering this tournament. Vyne stood up, and Grimwick lost his height advantage, so he stood up on his tippy paws. I fear Mr. Soot would hurt himself. And you need him alive, don't you, cat? Oh, and as if he hasn't had enough to try to kill him already? And you think you can win? Grimwick hissed at her. But I'd like to try. Norbert fumbled over his words as he spoke. Even if I don't make it past the first round, I'd like to try. Aha! Attaboy. See, Vyne, let us in. Vyne eyed Norbert intently. Are you sure, Mr. Soot? The challenges will be far more difficult than anything you've done in your classes. You understand that entering this competition could mean that you'd spend the rest of the semester in the medical ward? Norbert nodded. I understand. And Grimwick is strong. He can probably win this on his own. Vyne stepped closer and gauged Norbert. This cat is but a nuisance. This will all be on you, Mr. Soot, to win this tournament. To which Norbert could only respond by looking at the floor and blushing. But he didn't seem to back down. Vyne pointed to the cat. Fine. As long as Mr. Soot agrees, you can participate. I'll mark you down. I just did not want the cat speaking for you. Now go. The archive is still a mess and covered in dust. Norbert shuffled out of the room with his head hung down low. Grimwick made no attempt to leave, so Vyne sent a blast that got Grimwick off her desk. Grimwick picked himself up and moved towards the door, slightly in a dizzy. But before closing the door all the way, he looked at Red and Penelope. Ladies, prepare to lose. Oh, and Vyne, you dropped something. And Grimwick made a rather crude gesture with his paws. Vyne waved her hand, the door slammed shut in Grimwick's face. Norbert looked at Grimwick as the cat pulled his face back. I think she broke my nose. Norbert replied, ill-heeled, but why did you have to go and aggravate them? Grimwick pushed forward. "Because I've done many tournaments back in my day, and dare I say won them. Rule number 1, let your opponents know who they are dealing with, and I think we've done that rather well." Norbert sighed as they walked into the darkness. "I'm already regretting this." And up next in the Grimwick, the Demon Cat, Chapter 15, The Games Begin.